The invisible man Jasper Wade had become very good at being nobody. At 38 years old, he moved through Crimson Peak Fortress like a whisper, his toolbox rattling softly against his hip as he made his daily rounds. The fortress stood tall against the northern mountains, its red stone walls gleaming in the afternoon sun. For 2 years he had been the maintenance worker here, fixing leaky pipes, replacing worn hinges, and keeping the ancient heating system running. Nobody really noticed him, and that was exactly how he wanted it. The fortress served as a sanctuary for dragons and their bonded riders. Grand tapestries hung from the walls, depicting legendary battles between humans and dragons that had ended centuries ago with a peace treaty. Now dragons and humans coexisted, though the relationship remained delicate. The dragons nested in the upper towers while their riders trained in the courtyards below. Jasper kept everything functioning, unseen and unheard. He had not always been invisible. Before coming to Crimson Peak, Jasper had been a schoolteacher in a coastal village. He had a wife named Emma and a son named Thomas. They were his entire world. But a fever swept through the village 3 years ago, taking both of them within a week of each other. Jasper had survived, though part of him wished he had not. After burying them, he wandered north, looking for somewhere far away from memories. When he stumbled half-frozen onto the fortress steps, the guards brought him to Lady Seraphine. She offered him work, a room, and silence. He accepted all three gratefully. His workshop sat in the eastern corner of the fortress, tucked away behind the main stables. It was a cluttered space filled with spare parts, coils of rope, jars of nails, and tools hanging from every available hook. A small window looked out onto the mountain slopes. Jasper spent most of his free time here, tinkering with broken items or simply sitting in the quiet. The loneliness felt safer than trying to connect with people again. On this particular morning, Jasper entered his workshop carrying a bucket of paint. The south wall needed repairs, and he planned to spend the day patching cracks. But as he pushed open the heavy wooden door, he froze. Something was different. The air felt warmer than usual, and there was a sound. A soft chirping, almost like birdsong, but deeper, more musical. He set down the bucket slowly and scanned the room. At first, he saw nothing unusual. Then his eyes landed on the pile of canvas tarps in the corner. The pile was moving. Jasper approached carefully, his heart beating faster. He pulled back the top tarp and gasped. 5 dragon hatchlings stared up at him with bright golden eyes. They were small, each about the size of a large cat, with scales that shimmered in shades of crimson and amber. Their wings were folded against their sides, still too young and weak for flight. The smallest one opened its mouth and chirped again. Jasper knew these hatchlings. Everyone in the fortress knew about them. They belonged to Tempestra, a powerful storm dragon who had given birth 6 weeks ago before flying south on urgent business. The hatchlings were supposed to be in the royal nursery under constant supervision. Their disappearance would cause panic. He should alert the guards immediately. But something stopped him. The hatchlings did not look frightened or aggressive. They looked curious, tilting their heads as they studied him. The smallest one took a tentative step forward, sniffing at his boot. Jasper crouched down slowly, making himself less threatening. The hatchlings chirped excitedly, pressing closer. Their scales were warm to the touch, radiating a gentle heat. He noticed they looked thin, their ribs visible beneath the shimmering scales. Without thinking, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his lunch, a simple sandwich of bread and dried meat. He tore off small pieces and held them out. The hatchlings devoured the food eagerly, their tiny claws gentle against his palm. As they ate, Jasper felt something shift inside him. For the first time in 3 years, he felt needed. These small creatures depended on him in this moment. When the food was gone, the hatchlings did not leave. Instead, they climbed onto his lap, curling against him like puppies seeking warmth. The smallest one nuzzled against his chest, purring softly. Jasper sat on the cold stone floor, surrounded by dragon babies, and felt tears prick his eyes. He had forgotten what it felt like to care for something, to be trusted by something vulnerable. Time passed in a haze. Jasper stroked their smooth scales, marveling at their trust. They fell asleep one by one, their breathing slow and steady. He did not want to move, afraid of breaking this fragile moment. But eventually he heard footsteps approaching. Multiple pairs moving quickly. The door burst open and 3 people rushed inside. Keeper Vivian, a woman with silver hair and kind eyes, led the group. Behind her came Master Dorian, the head dragon trainer, a stern man with a scarred face. The third was a young guard named Felix. They stopped short, staring at the scene. Keeper Vivienne brought her hand to her mouth in shock. Master Dorian's face turned red with anger. Felix simply gaped, his mouth hanging open. Jasper felt his stomach drop. He was in trouble. Deep trouble. The hatchlings stirred at the noise but did not wake fully. They burrowed deeper against him, seeking his warmth and protection. Keeper Vivienne recovered first. She held up a hand, signaling the others to stay quiet. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Do not move. Do not startle them. This is unprecedented." Master Dorian stepped forward, his voice tight with controlled fury. "This man has stolen dragon hatchlings from the royal nursery. He should be arrested immediately." But Keeper Vivienne shook her head. "Look at them, Dorian. Really look. They are content. They trust him. When have you ever seen hatchlings this calm with a stranger?" Jasper found his voice, though it came out hoarse. "I did not steal them. I found them here. They came to me." Master Dorian snorted in disbelief, but Keeper Vivienne held up her hand again. "We will sort this out. But first we must bring him and the hatchlings to Lady Seraphine. She needs to see this herself." As they helped Jasper stand, careful not to disturb the sleeping dragons, he realized his invisible life was over. Whatever happened next would change everything. The unexpected choice, the throne room of Crimson Peak Fortress, was a place of intimidating beauty. Massive columns carved from red stone supported a vaulted ceiling painted with scenes of ancient dragon flights. Sunlight poured through stained glass windows, casting colored shadows across the polished floor. Jasper stood in the center of it all, feeling very small and very exposed. The 5 hatchlings refused to leave his side, clustering around his feet and chirping softly whenever he shifted his weight. Lady Seraphine sat upon her throne, a masterpiece of carved obsidian inlaid with veins of gold. She was a woman of perhaps 50 years, though her bearing made her seem ageless. Her dark hair was streaked with silver, pulled back to reveal angular features and eyes the color of stormy seas. She wore robes of deep purple embroidered with dragon symbols. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute authority, yet it was not unkind. "Jasper Wade, maintenance worker of this fortress, you stand accused of nothing, yet you are the center of a mystery that defies all our understanding." She leaned forward, studying him intently. "These hatchlings are the offspring of Tempestra the Crimson. They have been raised in luxury, attended by the finest keepers in the realm. Yet for the past week they have escaped their nursery repeatedly. We strengthened the locks. We added guards. We even consulted with enchanters to create magical barriers. Nothing worked. And now we discover they have been coming to you." Jasper bowed his head respectfully. "My lady, I speak the truth when I say I did not encourage this. They appeared in my workshop 3 days ago. I fed them because they seemed hungry. They returned the next day and the day after. I meant no harm or disrespect to anyone." Master Dorian stood to the right of the throne, his arms crossed over his broad chest. His weathered face was set in hard lines of disapproval. Dragons are not simple animals that wander to whoever offers them scraps of food. These hatchlings have access to the finest meats, prepared specifically for their nutritional needs. They sleep on silk cushions warmed by enchanted stones. Everything they could possibly want is provided. "Your story makes no sense, maintenance man." Keeper Vivienne stepped forward from where she had been standing quietly near the wall. She was the head of dragon welfare, responsible for the emotional and physical health of all dragons in the fortress. Her silver hair marked her as someone who had spent decades working with dragons, as their fire often bleached human hair over time. "Perhaps that is precisely the problem, Master Dorian. We provide everything for their bodies, but what about their hearts? Dragons are deeply emotional creatures. Even hatchlings form powerful bonds based on feeling rather than logic." "They are 6 weeks old," Master Dorian snapped. "Their emotions are barely developed. They respond to food, warmth, and basic comfort. Nothing more." Lady Seraphine raised her hand and both fell silent immediately. She descended from her throne with graceful steps, her robes whispering against the stone floor. The hatchlings watched her approach but did not retreat. They pressed closer to Jasper, their small bodies radiating trust. She stopped directly in front of him, so close he could see flecks of gold in her gray eyes. "Tell me about yourself, Jasper Wade. When you arrived at our gates 2 years ago, you were barely alive. My guard said you had walked through a blizzard with inadequate clothing and no supplies. By all rights, you should have died. Yet here you stand. What brought you to our mountains? Jasper swallowed hard. He rarely spoke of his past, but something in her gaze demanded honesty. I lost my family to illness 3 years ago, my lady. My wife Emma and my son Thomas. I was a teacher in a coastal village. After they died, I could not bear to stay in a place filled with their memories. I walked north, not really caring where I ended up. When your guards found me, I was ready to let the cold take me. But you offered me work and shelter. You gave me a reason to continue, even if that reason was just fixing broken things. Lady Seraphine's expression softened slightly, and in fixing broken things, perhaps you were fixing yourself. She turned her attention to the hatchlings. Dragons sense truth in a way humans cannot fully understand. They perceive the essence of a being without the interference of words or appearances. When you arrived here, you carried profound grief. Yet within that grief you maintained something precious. Gentleness without pretense. Care without expectation. These qualities resonate with dragonkind. She reached down and gently touched the head of the nearest hatchling. It allowed the contact briefly before turning back to press against Jasper's leg. A small smile touched her lips. Master Dorian, how many times have these hatchlings escaped in the past week? 8 times, my lady, he answered stiffly. Each time we found them heading toward the eastern section of the fortress. Toward Jasper's workshop, Lady Seraphine confirmed. They were not escaping. They were seeking something they needed that we failed to provide. She turned back to Jasper, her stormy eyes holding his. I offer you a choice and understand that this choice will reshape your entire life. You may return to your work as maintenance man, and we will arrange supervised visits with the hatchlings. Or you may accept the position of junior dragon keeper, working directly with these 5 until they reach maturity and bond with riders of their own. The throne room erupted in shocked whispers. Master Dorian's face turned purple with rage. My lady, this is madness. He has no training, no education in dragon care. He is a common laborer with no understanding of dragon physiology, behavior, or history. Appointing him as keeper violates every tradition we hold sacred. Then perhaps our traditions need examination, Lady Seraphine said calmly. I will not ignore what my eyes show me. These hatchlings have chosen their guardian, and I have learned to trust dragon wisdom over human pride. She looked at Keeper Vivian. You will supervise his training. Teach him everything he needs to know about dragon health and development. Master Dorian, you will provide instruction in dragon behavior and communication despite your objections. Master Dorian bowed stiffly. His jaw clenched so tight Jasper could see the muscles jumping. As my lady commands, Lady Seraphine returned her focus to Jasper. This is not a simple job, Jasper Wade. Tempestra will return in 2 weeks to assess her offspring. If she finds them neglected or unhappy, her wrath will be terrible. She could destroy this entire fortress in her rage, but if she sees them thriving, if she recognizes and approves of the bond you have formed, it could mark a new chapter in human and dragon relations. The responsibility is enormous. Do you accept? Jasper looked down at the 5 hatchlings gathered around him. They gazed up with trusting golden eyes, chirping encouragingly as if they understood the importance of this moment. For 2 years, he had existed in a fog of grief, going through the motions of life without truly living. He had hidden from connection, afraid of experiencing loss again. These small creatures were offering him something he thought he had lost forever. They were offering him purpose, meaning, and the chance to care for lives that depended on him. His voice was steady when he answered. I accept, my lady. I will do everything in my power to care for them and earn their mother's approval. A genuine smile crossed Lady Seraphine's face, transforming her severe features. Then it is decided. Jasper Wade, you are hereby appointed Junior Dragon Keeper of Crimson Peak Fortress. May your bond with these hatchlings bring wisdom to us all. As the court began to disperse, Jasper felt the weight of countless eyes upon him. Some looked curious, others skeptical, and more than a few were hostile. He had been invisible for so long, and now he stood at the center of attention. The hatchlings pressed closer, sensing his nervousness, offering their simple support. Keeper Vivian approached with a warm smile. Come, let me show you to the keeper quarters. You have much to learn and little time to learn it, but I believe you will surprise everyone, Jasper Wade. As he followed her from the throne room, the hatchlings trotting faithfully at his heels, Jasper realized his life had transformed completely. The invisible man had been seen, and there was no going back. Proving worth, the Dragon Keeper quarters were far more luxurious than Jasper's tiny maintenance room. A spacious chamber with stone walls softened by tapestries. A large bed with thick blankets, a desk, and most importantly, a specially designed nesting area for the hatchlings. Keeper Vivian had arranged soft fabrics and warming stones in a corner, creating a comfortable space for the young dragons. But the hatchlings ignored it completely, choosing instead to pile onto Jasper's bed the moment he sat down. The next 2 weeks became the most challenging of Jasper's life. Each morning began before dawn with Keeper Vivian, who taught him about dragon physiology. He learned that hatchlings needed specific minerals in their diet to develop strong scales and bones. He learned to recognize signs of illness, how to check their wing membranes for tears, and the importance of oil glands that kept their scales healthy. Vivian was patient and thorough, never making him feel foolish for his lack of knowledge. The afternoons belonged to Master Dorian, and those sessions were far less pleasant. The old trainer made no effort to hide his contempt. He drilled Jasper relentlessly on dragon behavior, communication signals, and the complex social structures of dragon families. "You are playing with fire, literally," Dorian would say, his voice dripping with disdain. "One mistake, one moment of ignorance, and those hatchlings could hurt themselves or others. I am teaching you these things not because I believe you deserve this position, but because I will not allow innocent dragons to suffer for Lady Seraphine's poor judgment." Jasper absorbed every insult without response, focusing only on the information. He stayed up late each night, studying the books Vivian lent him, memorizing dragon anatomy diagrams and behavioral charts. The hatchlings seemed to sense his dedication. They would curl up beside him as he read, their gentle purring a soothing background sound. He named them privately, though he told no one. The largest he called Ember, for her particularly bright red scales. The smallest became Spark, always the most curious and affectionate. The others were Ash, Crimson, and Blaze. During the day, Jasper practiced everything he learned. He prepared their meals carefully, measuring out portions of meat, fish, and the mineral supplements Vivian prescribed. He cleaned their nesting area, though they still preferred his bed. He exercised them in a private courtyard, encouraging them to stretch their wings even though they could not yet fly. Most importantly, he simply spent time with them. He talked to them constantly, his voice low and soothing, telling them stories about his life, his lost family, and his hopes for their future. The hatchlings thrived under his care. Their scales grew brighter and healthier. They gained weight, their thin frames filling out properly. Their energy increased and they became more playful, wrestling with each other and bringing Jasper their favorite toys, bits of cloth or small stones they found interesting. Even Master Dorian could not deny their improvement, though he refused to admit Jasper deserved any credit. But as the days passed, Jasper's anxiety grew. Tempestra would return soon and he had no idea what to expect. Keeper Vivian tried to prepare him. "Mother dragons are fiercely protective," she explained one afternoon as they watched the hatchlings play. "Tempestra is particularly powerful and proud. She will assess every aspect of their health and happiness. If she perceives any threat or neglect, her response will be immediate and violent. But if she approves, if she recognizes you as a true guardian, she may grant you a bond that few humans ever achieve." "What kind of bond?" Jasper asked, watching Spark attempt to climb a small tree. "A recognition bond, not like the battle bonds between dragons and riders, but something deeper, a mutual respect and trust that transcends species. It is rare and precious." Vivian paused, then added softly, "I believe you have already formed such bonds with her children. The question is whether Tempestra will see it." The day of Tempestra's return arrived with ominous weather. Dark clouds gathered over the mountains and thunder rumbled in the distance. The entire fortress gathered in the main courtyard, a vast open space designed for dragon landings. Lady Seraphine stood on a raised platform with her advisors. Master Dorian and Keeper Vivian flanked Jasper, who held Spark in his arms while the other 4 hatchlings pressed against his legs. His heart pounded so hard he thought everyone could hear it. A roar split the sky, primal and powerful. Every human in the courtyard felt it in their bones, a sound that triggered ancient instincts of fear and awe. Then she appeared, dropping through the clouds like a crimson comet. Tempestra was massive, easily 50 feet from nose to tail, with wings that seemed to block out the sky. Her scales gleamed like polished rubies and her eyes burned with golden fire. She landed with earth-shaking force, her talons gouging deep marks in the stone courtyard. The hatchlings erupted in excited chirps, recognizing their mother. But they did not run to her. They stayed with Jasper, looking up at him as if seeking reassurance. Tempestra's head swung toward them, her enormous eyes narrowing. She took a step forward, and the crowd scattered back in fear. Only Jasper remained frozen in place, holding Spark protectively against his chest. Tempestra lowered her massive head until it was level with Jasper. Her breath was hot and smelled of sulfur. One eye, as large as his entire head, studied him with terrifying intelligence. He could feel her power, the barely contained fire within her that could reduce him to ash in an instant. But he did not run. He met her gaze steadily, showing her the same trust her children had shown him. The dragon rumbled, a sound that vibrated through the ground. Then slowly, she extended her neck and sniffed each hatchling carefully. They chirped and nuzzled against her scales, clearly happy to see their mother. Tempestra examined them thoroughly, checking their wings, their scales, their overall condition. Finally, she turned her attention back to Jasper. She inhaled deeply, taking in his scent, reading his essence the way only dragons could. Time seemed to stop. The entire courtyard held its breath. Then Tempestra did something no one expected. She lowered her head completely and touched her snout gently to Jasper's forehead. The contact sent a wave of warmth through his entire body, and for a brief moment he felt her thoughts, pride in her healthy children, gratitude toward the human who had cared for them, recognition of his genuine love and dedication, approval. When she pulled back, there were tears streaming down Jasper's face. Tempestra released a different sound, not a roar but a deep melodic hum. The hatchlings joined in, creating a harmony that was achingly beautiful. Lady Seraphine stepped forward, her face alight with wonder. She has accepted you, Jasper Wade. Tempestra the Crimson has given you her blessing. This is a gift beyond measure. Master Dorian stood silent, his face unreadable. Finally, he approached Jasper and bowed his head. I was wrong about you. I apologize. You have proven yourself worthy in the only way that truly matters. You have earned dragon trust through genuine care and selfless devotion. I am honored to continue your training. As the crowd erupted in celebration, Jasper sank to his knees, overwhelmed by emotion. The hatchlings swarmed him, chirping happily, while Tempestra watched with approval. For the first time since losing his family, Jasper felt whole again. He had found a new purpose, a new family in these remarkable creatures who had chosen him when he had given up on himself. Lady Seraphine approached and placed a hand on his shoulder. You are no longer Junior Keeper, Jasper Wade. From this day forward, you are Master Keeper of the Crimson Brood. May your bond with them inspire others to see dragons not as beasts to be controlled, but as partners to be respected and loved. Jasper looked up at Tempestra, who rumbled her agreement. Then he gathered the hatchlings close, holding them as they had held him through his darkest days. The Invisible Man had become the most important person in Crimson Peak Fortress. His story of loss and redemption, of unexpected connections and healing bonds would be told for generations. And it all began because 5 small dragons saw something in a grieving maintenance worker that no one else had bothered to look for. They saw a guardian, a protector, and a friend. They saw someone worth choosing. The storm clouds parted and sunlight broke through, bathing the courtyard in golden light. A new chapter had begun for everyone at Crimson Peak Fortress, and at its heart stood a man who had learned that sometimes being seen, being needed, and being loved could heal even the deepest wounds. Janitor